Hey Clayton, hey Tyler.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi there.
Hi Puneet as well. We love our early birds.
Hello, yeah, very early.
We'll give this a couple more minutes and wait for some people to filter in before we get started. But big shout out to all of our friends that are here and punctual. While we're waiting to kick this off, did anyone on the call today attend the Workfront Champion office hours this morning? I'm going to take silence as a no, but that was another really exciting one. I don't know about you guys, but we're just starting to do some dabbling into Workfront as well. And it's always just incredible to learn with people that have so much experience and time working with the product. So if any of you are starting to dabble into Workfront, shameless plug for a great conversation on a 101 level course that happened this morning. What do you think, Stephanie? Should we go ahead and get started or give it a couple more minutes?
We can get started with housekeeping and introductions, Tyler, and then as people trickle in, they can trickle in. I'd also like to encourage everyone to unmute yourselves, join the conversation. This is awesome time you have with Tyler and Clayton, but I also understand if it's intimidating to unmute, so also feel free to drop any questions you may have in the chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephanie. Let's go ahead and get started with our housekeeping. So welcome officially to our second champion office hours for AEP and CDP. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items to go through. Just making sure we're abiding with our Adobe Code of Conduct. Just a heads up, this meeting will be recorded and it will at a later date be posted to the Adobe User Group YouTube for training, education, and learning. As a reminder, this opportunity and office hours in general is so great and so cool because it is super interactive and open. So if at any point you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat. As we are getting started with the session today, we'll open up the Q&A just to have a more kind of focused and overview approach of the questions that are being asked. So do not be afraid to post your questions right there in the chat. Finally, at the end of this call today, we will have a QR code linking to a survey just to give us some feedback and improvements for the call so that we can continue to learn and grow with the program. A couple of quick house rules. In this meeting, there is no self-promotion or pitching of any kind. Don't contact anyone outside of the meeting without their consent. And if members are sharing use cases during this meeting today, please don't share this information without their consent or contacting them first. And finally, remember to join the office hours chapter. You can do that by tapping the link right in our platform where you attended this call. There's a little button up at the top where you can see a join button right next to the main title and the members so that you can get alerts for any of our future meetings. That's just the best and easiest way to make sure that you're hearing about all of these office hours opportunities as they come in. All right, our agenda today. This is going to be a really cool, exciting, and focused session. As you can see, we have a very special guest here today. The bulk of the session is going to be somewhere in between a Q&A and a fireside chat, just talking about all things collaboration and some of the insights, trends, and exciting functionality within the platform. We'll finally just close with some additional questions about office hours in general and the future of the program. You all met David and I last time on our kickoff, but as a reminder, we are your office hours hosts. We will be organizing and setting up these sessions, but good news, you won't only be hearing from us forever. We'll be continuing to partner with some incredibly talented and knowledgeable people and pulling in our fellow AEP champions so they can talk to their areas of expertise and you can learn from a whole suite of people with a great breadth of knowledge. All right, our topic today. As I'm sure you're aware, collaboration is some really exciting and fun new technology. And as we are continuing to shift away from cookies and there are some unknowns and questions about third-party data that can be captured and collected, collaboration is here right at the right time and in the right place. We are joined today by myself and Clayton Smith. Clayton, I'll kick it over to you to give a quick introduction.
Perfect. Thank you, Tyler. And thanks for everyone joining today. Excited to chat. So I'm Clayton Smith. I'm a group product manager on the Real-Time CDP broader team. In my specific product team, ideated and launched Real-Time CDP Collaboration right around a year ago. And our group also oversees Adobe Audience Manager, the tool that we all know and love for over decades at this point. But yeah, I have a background very similar to many of you as a previous MarTech and AdTech practitioner. So I've got my hands dirty in Adobe Analytics implementations and reporting, Audience Manager implementations and execution, and even used a ton of other related MarTech and AdTech tools. So I would love to have this conversation with you all today, and I'm hoping that I can bring a valuable product sense and perspective to the conversation.
And Clayton, I heard at one point you yourself were an Adobe champion.
I was. I don't know if it was the inaugural Adobe Analytics champions or one of the first few years, but yep, I was an Adobe Analytics champion. So you guys are my peeps.
Very cool. Well, we have a couple of questions we were able to gather from you all ahead of time, and we're going to go ahead and dive into some of those questions. But our goal today is just to have a really open dialogue and conversation about collaboration. So, as we're continuing to chat and we say one thing that makes a question pop into your head, go ahead and just pop it into the chat or into the Q&A. We'll be monitoring all of those questions and just starting some dialogue based on what you all want to continue to hear about. So we have a couple of ones we'll go through and kind of kick off this dialogue with. And yeah, just excited to start a conversation with you all based on what you're excited to hear. So without further ado, I'm going to jump straight into the first one we got, Clayton. The session today is titled Building Data Bridges, Not Borders. How does building data bridges and borders change the way a brand thinks about its first-party data? How is collaboration supporting this world that seemingly is just becoming more inherently collaborative, and data is becoming more democratized and just a little bit less proprietary?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's an interesting framing, right? That is really pertinent to really the current reality many of us are working in today. So, the art of data collaboration or working with other parties' data is nothing new. However, I think with the shift more towards first party data management being that core of customer experience delivery and even a lot of paid media execution, there kind of became a contraction in the behaviors of kind of data collaboration that historically used to be more device based, before GDPR and CCPA. So the combination of stricter data privacy and governance laws, and I think more of a focus on more sensitive data assets, temporarily created a contraction. But really, what I think we're now seeing is so many organizations now have a better wrangle on their really highly valuable first party customer information, paired with the introduction of now privacy enhancing technologies or clean rooms. Now it's really starting to kind of open up the doors, I think, to build or maybe laying down the bridges with multiple different partners, whether that's a strategic partner, working with someone within your own organization, another business unit that you haven't been able to before, going deeper with a media partner, for example, or even interacting closer with your media agency in ways that maybe your legal teams weren't comfortable with in the past, or pathways didn't really exist in a seamless way. That I think with the introduction of this new technology has, really laid these bridges. So I think technology now has, opened up these borders a little bit. And with the discourse and discussion all over LinkedIn and beyond around what you could do with a richer data set within your kind of private data network beyond only working with the information I think is really inspiring. And we're seeing a ton of value in unlocks there. Because really, if you think about it, we're able to deliver such good experiences and performance with what we know about clients. Imagine doubling or tripling that, to fill in the gaps of your understanding of who a customer is, to then supercharge those customer experiences, whether that's owned and operated personalization or even bringing that into like a paid media campaign to ultimately deliver better messaging at the right time to the people.
And one of those kind of key themes you've highlighted is the fact that collaboration is really serving as a bridge. And, maybe it's not building the entire bridge end to end, but it's establishing a foundation and a framework for that collaboration. One other key kind of pillar of collaboration in general is its support for consumer consent, data privacy, and of course, data transfer. what are some of your insights into how collaboration is differentiating itself from the kind of general clean room industry on supporting privacy risks and ensuring we're avoiding violating consumer consent?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so there's multiple layers to this. So kind of first, like fundamentally, collaboration is really built on a permissionless multi-party computation model that's then orchestrated by our trusted execution environment. Also primarily using heavily pseudonymized data structures, and that's a lot of buzzwords all in one. But the reason why I call that out is that there's multiple levels of checks and balances that both make sure you don't share any information you don't want with partners. So there's a robust yet easy way to get connected with the folks you want to. And then two, just based on the underlying technology that we use to ultimately join data in a federated and private way. um, we're using pseudonymized data that has minimum aggregations by default. So really, there's virtually zero risk in PII leakage. I can't say none, but so that's kind of part A. Part B is like the application design itself. So what we've started with is more of like a purpose-built design. So instead of having to go back and forth with your partners and write custom queries and get them approved, which is a pain, we have predictable use cases out of the box that are very high value. But what that does is it allows us to create a very nice and clean permission model, so you know exactly what data goes in, what data goes out, and controlling really what folks can view or see. So there's less risk of random attacks that sometimes can happen in infrastructure clean rooms. And then the third pillar is along the lines of particularly for AEP customers. So this is built on AEP with a lot of the core principles and data governance capabilities natively integrated. So when you want to work with any audience data, for example, or even event data in the system, we'll support your consent opt-outs if you use the right filters, as well as privacy security shield policies, and of course, marketing actions. So the combination of all of those things has really helped us get past the legal and security reviews that folks need to go through generally. In addition to that, just for many of you who do have a lot of this data already sitting in CDP, being able to work within an ecosystem where you already have approvals has really accelerated the process for a ton of customers that we've worked with so far. So there's kind of multiple layers there, but really we've made this so you feel comfortable. It's very privacy by design, and most importantly, it's extremely easy to use and get started with.
And you touched on one really great point from a customer point of view, which is that it's built on top of AEP, right? It's a part of this AEP and apps suite where it's AEP plus, right? And so all of the work that, data engineers or data architects are doing to get their data into AEP in the first place, do their data prep, do their data loading, all of that just goes straight into your implementation with collaboration inherently, because you're doing all of that work before you even get that data into AEP, right? And collaboration is just building on that foundation that you're already implementing within your environment. You're not doing everything from ground zero. You're not just pulling your tables and your data sets in like you might have to otherwise with another clean room.
Yeah, that's right. And just two more points on that. So one is, we have the ability to automatically expire basically any information that we're referencing in the system. So, no data without an update is available for more than 7 days. And I think that's a really important piece here, just to maintain sort of the freshness and opt-out considerations. And of course, if any data gets appended back into CDP, if you want to use it for any orchestration, We have maximum TTL set there too. So some of those additional functionalities that we have by design have really helped folks get past, some of the concerns that, in a lot of cases are a little out of the control of technology. Second thing I do want to mention, because I'm not sure there's a question for this, is we also allow you to work with data that's not necessarily in AEP. So if you do want to work with data that's in cloud storage, or a partner that's not an AEP customer or CDP customer today, we have routes where you can invite a client to work with, as many of your data partners may not be on CDP today. And it's very easy for them to also reference data in an S3 bucket, a Snowflake share, or even a CSV upload in some cases. So just wanted to call that out as well, that you're not limited to just the Adobe ecosystem.
Great points. One more question we have here, and I'm going to directly quote this one. With the continued deprecation of third-party cookies, many brands feel like they're losing their vision. How specifically does collaboration act as a replacement or an upgrade to how to target audiences?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question that many folks are trying to figure out. What do we do next? How useful is device-based data? Is it more painful than valuable? We obviously know there's a ton of use cases where it's critical, like thinking more from like an offsite perspective, from like a retargeting, et cetera. So really the way that we've seen more sophisticated customers advance is in a few ways. So first and foremost, leveraging more of your first party data, including durable IDs, or derived kind of first party IDs, can be used for matching in this environment, with partners to kind of maximize match rates. The second part is we have unlocked matching on more device IDs recently. So you can match on mobile advertising IDs. Index IDs are coming soon for what they're worth, because that does make folks feel comfortable and unlock some of these unauthenticated use cases, which are pretty differentiated, as it's hard to get that data out to other ecosystems. But you even have the ability to match on other objects. So a hashed IP address, it's not the most precise, but sometimes that is all you have or all you need to answer a question that you might want with a partner. And then the third pillar, which I'm really excited about, is our team is building out more native integrations with the ecosystem IDs of the world and partner IDs to have that be more natively plugged in. So you could work with, say, a partner ID for matching, activation, and building sort of your private data network in the system, but not necessarily have to pull all that back into CDP, where you might not want probabilistic information. So an example of that is we launched our first partner ID integration last year in Australia, and many folks in that region are heavily using it for unauthenticated durable matching. So I talked a little bit more about the capabilities, but I think ultimately now, to augment the loss of signal, you have the ability to work with first party data and device-based data, as well as an expanded definition of what that is. Like an automotive manufacturer can work with VINs, for example. So you can get a little bit creative here as well. But, I think with the shift in support for doing more in first-party data, or derived IDs based on first-party data and IDAFs in the media side, you generally will have enough capability to reach who you want, how you want, and get the expansion you need versus sending over like 500 million IDs and just having a big catch-all like we're used to in the cookie world. It's more precise, but more robust.
Awesome, Clayton. That's the future is here, and it's integrated directly with AEP, and that's the just most interesting part, especially as these conversations are shifting into second party data and Google is continuing to talk about when those cookies are going to be deprecated.
Right.
And, when that does happen, the ability to just have an ecosystem like this ready and available for starting to get your partner's data really tied together is just going to be critical. So we've got 2 more questions here, and I'm going to try and position these in a way to really just start to inspire some conversation with you all. So as we're talking about these last 2, people in the chat, feel free to hit that more button and raise your hand if you're comfortable coming off of mute for some dialogue, or post your questions right in the chat and or Q&A. Clayton, we've got one more here asking if you can share a high-level example of a data clean room utilization within a collaboration that's changed how a brand is doing measurement for its marketing attribution.
Yes, I love this question because I think this use case specifically hits on kind of one of the unique values or like unique data sets that we can bring to the table, particularly when you're coming from AEP as a source. So what we've built out is the ability to look at your event data that you have, in most cases, online or offline, filter that down to a meaningful conversion event, like a web visit or a purchase. And then the cool thing here is what we've done is we've created a route where you can append your profile information to those events. And then we can take that and run against publisher ad log data to then help you understand a couple of things. So first and foremost, view through based attribution at the actual source that's based on a set of durable IDs. So more people or household based outcomes measurement. 2, that has also created a route where folks can bring offline data sets or data that they're not allowed to ship out to any ad platform to measure outcomes. So that was a very exciting one that we've unlocked lately, is just pure visibility and outcomes that has never been possible before for a certain regulated industry. And then 3, with that connection of being able to filter down your audiences by your conversion events, starting to look at the world by audience-based performance versus just like a static view of, how did all my website visits, get attributed to this campaign, for example. Now you can look at, how did this cohort convert? And I think that that's really going to be the future of where a lot of this goes, is this cohort-based performance understanding and optimization, and then next best campaign or next best action. So those are some of the things that we've done, is really bring that visibility that helps with next best campaign to start. And then, you can imagine how you can connect those dots in the agentic future.
What an awesome answer. And just there's so much there. And there's so many opportunities where this is going to be just one extra layer of enhancement for what those use cases are. And it's another one of those tools and opportunities that the amount of use cases that you can implement and opportunities you can find are kind of defined on your creative problem solving skills, right? It's finding the problems and having a flexible tech stack to support a whole bundle of different answers and solutions to those problems. So I see we've got a couple of questions starting to roll into the chat. Keep those going. We've got one more, and then we'll start to get into these live questions here. Our final question is for someone that is sitting in this office hours session today that wants to start their first collaboration project tomorrow. What's the first variable or element of success that they need to ensure they're able to successfully implement end-to-end?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, it might be simple, but ultimately it would be focusing on a use case, right? It's always what everything boils down to, is just understanding what you need to do to actually solve a business problem. in a better way, right? Because when there is measurable impact or hypothesized measurable impact, that always helps push things along to the finish line. So whether you're kind of a publisher looking to better monetize your audiences, or even just deepen a relationship with a strategic partner, or you're, any kind of client and you want to deliver smarter personalization, but you're lacking the signals and you think it would move the needle. I think those two things, having a use case in mind helps you then push through just in general with kind of MarTech and AdTech, right? You know what data to bring in, you know who to talk to, you know the scope of what you're trying to get done, and hopefully you can time box it around some sort of initiative. The second part I would say is if you are in more of an exploratory mode and you need to just kind of build a hypothesis, then really at that point is I would start educating yourself on the technology and getting your internal stakeholders on board with this practice if they're not already. And it's really easy to set up an account and test the product for all of you folks in here if you haven't done it already. So just getting comfortable and familiar is also a really great first step. And sometimes that might, create some light bulbs or have some light bulbs go off.
Awesome. Greg, I see you dropped a question here in the chat, and you're wondering what some use cases other orgs are implementing with collaboration and trying to understand if there's any roadmap to include a live ramp ID. I'm assuming you mean as a matching key.
That is correct, yes.
Cool. Yeah, so I'll take the last one first. So we are talking to all of the big identity spines in the US and globally, and we have a great relationship. We did announce LiveRamp ID support with the initial product launch. It's not fully ready yet, but discussions are definitely underway. So hoping we can figure something out there in the near future. Going to the first question around how other folks are using the tool. I kind of see this really in two or three really primary categories right now. So the first one is intra-organizational sharing or enterprise sharing. So a lot of customers have multiple sandboxes in one IMS org for really, big company or even across regions. But in some cases, they're not allowed to, share data without using a clean room in the middle, or it's copying data across sandboxes is just operationally and technically inefficient with billing considerations. And so we've seen multiple folks, use the tool for just the operational component of, getting audiences between sandboxes or getting audiences between different business units that have never had the opportunity to enrich their customer base before due to legal and privacy restrictions. So if you're in any of those cases, that is like generally the lowest hanging fruit because there's generally a lot of value to gain there for many reasons. The second kind of category I would say is more around audience monetization, particularly for publishers of different types and categories. So when you go into collaboration today, you'll see a set of CTV publishers that are very prominent, where they're making audiences available for advertisers to come in, look and gather insights, understand what the estimated match rate would be, to hopefully then create more of an audience-driven campaign to drive performance using your own data and some of their audiences that might index well with yours to bring kind of more data-driven targeting your TV buys. And then, of course, closing the loop with measurement based on the workflow I outlined earlier. So those could be kind of two different use cases, and there's definitely both sides to it. There's the publisher monetization side, the advertiser efficiency side, and then the measurement outcome side, which might even, we've had multiple folks do that use case in isolation without any of the audience activation bits. And the third use case, which is emerging now, and we're building out better support for this, is working with kind of more data partners. So you may have some larger partners that you buy data from, that of various different scales, that you would want more of a programmatic way to interact with that data or enrich, a subset of that data into your profiles. And there'll be more capability soon where you wouldn't even need to do that. But those are kind of the pillars, right? Brand to brand, within your own org, or with a strategic partner for co-marketing, advertiser to publisher, and all those different flavors. And then, also working with strategic data partners, to just get access to richer insights that you may already have a relationship with, but may not have a route to get that in your AEP instance.
Great, thank you.
Awesome. Moving on, we have one more question from Ricardo here, still on LiveRamp and Ramp ID. And Ricardo, it sounds like LiveRamp and Ramp ID in Brazil is very, very widely adopted and is very commonly used with a whole bunch of orgs. With LiveRamp presenting its data clean room and how easy it is to use with Ramp ID, it sounds like your question is, where can collaboration kind of supplement or work with it? What are some of the pros and cons, or what other kind of specific components you're looking to dive into?
Yeah, Tyler, I need to understand if it's a good idea to put the DCR from LiveRamp, because for me, I think that we already have the real-time CDP, and the next step is move to the CDP collaboration, is what I think, but I don't know if I'm right about this.
Yeah, I mean, what I could say kind of more objectively is, starting with collaboration may make a lot of sense to see how far you can take it, for the use cases you have. You can invite different publishers in market. I know we just rolled out more widely in region. And also the key thing is being able to, if you have any folks making data available back to you, in tying that back to CDP for either owned and operated or paid media activation, it's all fairly seamless and out of the box. There's a lot of value in LiveRamp clean rooms too, in certain regions and use cases and things like that. So, in my opinion, there's really a world of potentially multiple clean rooms, depending on really what your use cases are, where your partners are at, and what you need, right? Like, you might even want a Snowflake clean room, right? If you want to run like ML jobs with a very deep strategic partner for like multi-touch attribution or something. So I kind of see it more as like a tech versus like one solution, like generally CDPs are. But just for ease of use and convenience and like interconnectivity, there's no downside to getting started with collaboration. You have a license, you have credits, so maybe try that out and then evaluate from there.
Yeah. Thanks for the answer, Clayton.
Of course.
Yeah, and Ricardo, two other things just on the customer side too. With collaboration, there's always going to be zero copy with your data, right? You don't need to do polls and do massive loads of data outside of your Adobe ecosystem and get it ready for the DCR. All of it is staying right in Adobe and right in your environment, with the only exception being this shared, safe and provisioned match place for both customers. So it's the benefit there of it's all staying within one ecosystem. And then secondly, to Clayton's point, like once you have your configuration set up and your provision for collaboration, the ease of getting it like tested and starting to get your, get the ball rolling is a matter of months. It's once it's set up and you're looking to get those audiences shared with, your partner or your, advertiser.
Yeah.
It's really, really just a matter of clicks once you're there, which is just truly incredible.
Tyler did
Good to
it,
know.
so he can He can vouch.
Yeah. He's a good seller.
Right.
And not even from a just marketing of the feature perspective, but data sharing and collaboration like this is just one of those things that historically has been incredibly challenging. And
Yeah.
one motto from Adobe all across the board, which I personally have always appreciated, is eliminating clicks and eliminating steps. And the design of collaboration is one such that, from my perspective, it was foundational with how it was set up. And it was set up in a way that you don't need to be an engineer and you don't need to have a incredible architecture level of experience. Once your environment is set up and ready for this, which all of ours are by working with AEP, collaboration is a very seamless approach to just being able to, like we talked about earlier, just take it one step further.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler.
All right, we have time for one last question. Does anyone in the chat have anything else burning, any inspired thoughts that they want to either post or come off mute and just start before we move on? Clayton, any final words? Any closing sentiments?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, thank you all for your time today. Feel free to reach out to me directly if you guys want to learn more. My team's happy to kind of hop in and support, whether it's use case ideation or getting through security or even a quick walkthrough. We do that all the time, and it only takes 30 minutes or so max. And then two, we're still rapidly building out the technology to offer just tons of more value, including more integrations with publishers in the catalog that are out of the box, way to invite partners to the table, whether that's another brand or an advertiser. And then now that the foundation is laid, we can start adding on some very complicated, high value, differentiated use cases. So an eye out for some announcements at Summit, just kind of building on this foundation that I think can start really, moving the needle for the use cases that you might have in mind.
Awesome. And Megan, I saw you got one more in here, so we're going to hit that really quick. Clayton, what's your advice for someone looking to get started with RT CDP Collab?
Yeah, it's great. It's a pretty straightforward process. So one, get role-based access controls, then you can get into the environment. Two, I would go through the workflow of sourcing an audience. It only takes maybe 5 minutes maximum just to get a feel. After you do that, you can delete it if you want. But, I think if you carve out 15, 20 minutes, skim through the docs, and even just go hop in the tool itself, see who's in the publisher catalog, then you can be quote unquote implemented with audiences literally in 10 to 15 minutes. And now you could say, hey, we have a clean room and we have audiences in the clean room. What do we want to do with it? So that's a great first step. And then in parallel, I think the other thing with folks in this room is this will also help you provide potentially value to other stakeholders in your organization. Like so much of AEP and CDP is really good for like the audience-based workloads, personalization, sending out to media destinations. But there could be routes for your business to, if you have a sponsorships team, if you have a paid media or like agency that doesn't have all of this catered up with all of your data in their own environment, they may need some of this tooling themselves and they don't even know the art of the possible. And then of course, if you're on the media side of the house, you could have a route to start testing monetization of your audiences for managed service buys, for example. We've been seeing a lot of that kind of happen in the past 6 months or so. So I think if you kind of look at it that way, yes, you can get direct value enriching profiles, but also start helping Adobe provide more value to your organization, which I think a lot of our solutions don't do necessarily. And that was kind of the goal of collaboration, is expand the aperture a little bit.
What a great answer. And I see, Colleen, you added a couple of great references into the chat for certification and a resource there too for onboarding of RT CDP collab in general. So thank you for posting those and making them available. All right. On that note, I just want to thank everyone, and Clayton especially, for taking time out of your very busy day to come and have this conversation with us. We have a QR code here on the screen in case you want to be able to pitch your questions for next time. And as we're continuing to have this open dialogue, if you have a question that is burning a hole and you want to make sure it's answered for the next call, feel free to give that QR code a scan and start the conversation on Experience League. Separately, we have a couple of sessions coming up at Summit from our champions, both David and I, and additionally a whole other suite of really incredible sessions that are going to be happening at Summit, including at least one from Clayton, right?
Yep, you know it. We're going to be talking about some really interesting stuff that might blow your mind in one of my sessions, and then we have a lab as well. So if you want to get hands on there, that'll be also a good way to get started.
Awesome. And last but not least, finally, thank you for joining us and taking the time out of your busy day to come and be a part of this conversation and just learn a little bit more about collaboration. You can give this QR code a scan and provide us some feedback on how this went, what you wish could have been a little bit different, and overall, just make sure that your voice is heard. And that's going to be it for our session today. Thanks, everyone, and we'll talk to you next month for our next iteration of Office Hours.
Thanks all.
Bye.